Morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us this morning for this add-on showcase. We're really excited to be kicking off this series of videos here in the Australian market. And this morning, we're touching on the topic of hospitality by Curie from Cooking the Book. And with Taz, who's as we're having some internet outages here at the moment. So what I wanted to start with was talking about what add-ons are, why we're even doing these videos. So when we look at software, we have the MYOB accounting software that is really good at things like your general ledger, about baking things. So, coffee right now. Wouldn't it be fantastic? We should do these with coffee. You know, it's about the things you're passionate about. Well, that's where add-ons come into play. These guys come from the industry, and they've recognized that a lot of businesses struggle with certain parts of their business. Cooking the Books is a great example. We all know that chefs can often create fantastic meals. But when it comes to ordering, managing invoices, checking with suppliers, those and that's where Cooking the Books comes into play. It's a bit of software that lifts that load, makes it easier. Where it fits with the accounting package is that it takes the financial information there and brings it across, saves you having to double enter it, saves you having to type it in multiple times. And if you're anything like me, it's really easy to add an extra zero on the end of things that probably shouldn't have an extra zero on them. So that's where some of the add-ons come into play. Tasman from Tanda, who's also going to join us later on, is in the staff management space. And for many businesses, we know that the staff management is one of the biggest costs in the business. But it's also tricky, making sure staff check in at the right time and clock in at the right time and clock out at the right time, making sure that somebody else is not clocking in on their behalf. And then from a business owner's point of view, it's, well, I've got all that information. How do I get it into the accounting package to actually do the pay run? And those things take time, and they can be frustrations and add extra burdens. And we recognize that. And that's where the add-on community really comes to play. And these great solutions have a little solution is how it fits in there. But we're also going to look at the space. What are the things that businesses like yourself are struggling with on a daily basis? These videos, as you know now, are broadcast live, but we're also archiving it, and it will be here for you to watch later. In their business life every day. Right, so you didn't come along here today to hear me ramble on about these things. What you came along was to hear these guys talk about how the new cloud-connected accounting software really helps your business by adding and leveraging these guys.
Software, so it looks after
Okay, sorry about that. We seem to be having some internet issues here, so that did just drop out and drop back in. But we'll carry on. We'll just carry on like that. So we were talking about the areas of the business that it helps.
So it goes through the receiving order process, so it then compares if there's any price changes, if they've tried to add something to the invoice, if something's been missed off, so you see any discrepancies there, and then that saves as an invoice that can be exported back into MYOB.
So when we look at the sort of frustrations that are in many kitchens today, is it purely around invoicing? Is that, or managing those costs, is that the frustration point that most of these guys are having?
Yeah, so the two major costs in hospitality are always your food and your labour.
Right.
So both of them in hospitality, unlike most other businesses, are completely flexible. If you're in a manufacturing business, you're going to pay the same amount for metal every day. There's no fluctuation there. With food, it changes. With labour, people start and finish at different times. So it's really hard to budget what you might actually make. So what we do is live data. It updates all of your recipe costs as soon as you receive an invoice with a different price. So you know exactly how much you're spending on each dish at a given time. The main problem that people are finding is the double data entry is a massive problem, and that there are not a lot of solutions out there that allow the chef to do whatever they want. It's normally sort of buying groups, so you can only get a certain amount of ingredients that are listed, and you'll get it cheaper and for a guaranteed term. But then when your chef wants to get a little bit creative, they get very frustrated because they can only use these 20 ingredients that are on that buying sheet. So we've made it so that you can use whatever pantry list you want. It obviously fluctuates a bit, but then we've counted for that to make it live data, so the chef can still do his works of art and you can still make sure that you're making money. Exactly,
and I think that's a key point here to highlight as well, is that for a lot of businesses where there is a bookkeeper or an accountant or someone else, and often in restaurants it's a separate owner who still wants that visibility, having that live information makes it so much easier to have the conversation, correct?
Absolutely, and being
Let's just cut over to Tasman for a moment there. Tasman, are you there, mate?
Yeah. How are you going, Kerry?
We talked about in that one of the other large areas of costs for hospitality type businesses is in the staff space. Is that something you would agree with?
Oh, for sure, definitely. Staff costs, especially in hospitality, can get anywhere between 30 and 50% of your running costs for your business. That's an extremely large portion of your operations, which is staff management, know exactly how much it's costing you.
And would you also agree that, as Kerry was touching on, the double entry, or the having to take information from one place and put it into another, is a huge pain point in the kitchen? Is that also a massive pain point when it comes to managing staff and the costs associated with staff?
Yeah, especially around things like your timesheets, your rosters, and the hard thing for Australian businesses, especially around hospitality, is the cost of staff usually just isn't what you have to pay them. It's not just in the paycheck. It's the actual compliance, it's the work around collecting timesheets, it's around then the interpretation of the different award rates, so the General Hospitality Award, knowing when to pay them Saturday, Sunday rates, overtime. It can get very complicated, and the cost of paying staff can far exceed the actual paycheck that you just have to hand over each week or fortnight.
Yeah, absolutely. Kerry, when it comes to looking after the administration of the business, and that's what Tasman we're just starting to touch on there, those hidden things, is Cooking the Books helping people discover hidden costs? And I'm thinking of things like wastage as well.
Absolutely. So it looks after wastage, it has a record of all of that. That obviously is still included in what you've spent on your food costs, because if you haven't sold it, you've lost money, especially because you could have sold it for a lot more than what the actual dollar value of the food you threw in the bin was. The main thing that it helps with the administration side of things is that because it's live recipe costing, a lot of times people will put in a recipe that they've costed a year ago. They think they're making jumping price. It's just too hard to constantly cost your recipes. Like, you don't employ a chef to sit there and do paperwork all day.
Exactly, and we've all seen it. The price of bananas skyrockets when something hits the Northern Territories, or avocados go up in price. Those changes instantly reflected back into the system.
Absolutely. So when you receive the order, if it pushes a recipe over your desired cost, which is usually about 30%, it sends you a report and lets you know which recipes are affected by that invoice, and then you can make a decision from there whether you just make it unavailable, whether you put the price up, what you want to do with that.
So it's helping you understand the cost of it. There's also a risk mitigation, isn't it? When you do see a spike in that cost, you can do something about it. Tasman, in that same vein with risk mitigation, staff are often a little transient, or hey, we all suffer from getting sick and things like that. How does something like Tanda help me manage the day-to-day rostering of staff, those sort of side of things, to mitigate staff risk in a business?
Yeah, so there's the risk of not knowing how much your staff are costing you, and there's also an additional risk of, am I paying my staff right? Which is a question which most people grapple with. It definitely keeps me up at night. So it's the risk of knowing exactly how much that you've budgeted for, being able to accurately forecast within your roster, not just when and where people are working, but exactly how much it's costing you with those rates included. And it's the risk of making sure that the pay rates are actually correct, that you are being compliant and you're paying the correct award. So there's definitely risk mitigating factors, and like the benefit of these add-ons, Cooking the Books, Tanda, is just to make yourself as efficient as possible. Chefs aren't the best paperwork, like they're not administrators, they're not office administrators, they're not meant to be doing pay work, they're meant to be making great food. And anything that can alleviate the work that it subtracts from that.
Often the person who's actually managing the business it's easier, so they can concentrate on what they're doing, correct?
Absolutely. And small hospitality business owner, and you're not from a business background.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Now I'm getting told here that we're offline as well. Let's just double check that we're still live. Tasman, can you still hear us here, mate?
Yes, I can hear you, Kieran.
Yeah, fantastic. So one other question I've had here is, we've all got these devices in our pockets, the mobile phone, right? How important has this become rosters?
Sorry, you did just cut out there, Kieran, but I'm guessing that the point of the question was around using mobile phones and your employees to be able to check their rosters and their timesheets.
Perfect.
Yeah, excellent. So we utilize a lot of existing technology. So one is the actual time clock, which we will send out part of the subscription. That this sits in the business. It's a modified Android device that employees would use to clock in and clock out as they arrive to work, which takes a photo and pushes that up to the cloud so it's identity verified, and exactly when they've arrived to work. But there's also stuff that staff can do on their phones, which is checking their roster so they know what times that they're working, and also so that they can view their roster and also their timesheet. They can know what hours that they've worked. So it's all around the automation collection of that, and also letting the staff and business be a little more transparent around the costings as well.
Now, is it true that we've heard before, that people are having a bit of fun with this clock in, clock out system because you're taking a photo of the person? Is that a surprise to you that people are actually sort of playing with it and making it fun for staff to actually clock in, clock out, and running little competitions and things like this? Yeah,
definitely. So we never encourage it, but it always turns out into a weekly selfie competition that businesses have, basically because it's easier than staff, and they know, than having to write down on a piece of paper the times that they've started and finished their shift. The staff don't want to do that. They'd much rather just get to work, be able to take a selfie because they can't see themselves. And the benefit for the business owner is obviously, it's not about the big brother, but it's around time integrity. So you know exactly when staff are working. But it's always fun. It's always fun.
Yeah, exactly. It is always a bit of fun, isn't it? Curie, obviously, Cooking the Books isn't taking photos of people, but there have been surprising parts of it that have come to light as people start to use it, that you and the team have gone, hey, that's kind of neat, we didn't think of that, or didn't see it being used that way.
One of the most surprising things is that even though we've got intense reporting, chefs really love the fact that they can set a weekly budget right at the top that counts down.
Nice.
That's their favourite thing.
Right.
They can pull out a food cost report in 30 seconds, but they find it easier to have a big green button telling them how much left they've got of their set weekly budget. And also the fact that chefs start to get really excited. You know, chefs are notoriously hateful of technology. So at first they're very tediously accepting the fact that they're going to have to move to a technology-based thing.
Yep.
And next thing you know, they're calling you up saying all these reports that they've done and how much they've lowered their food costs. And I guess it's almost like an addictive thing when they've got all this information that they never had access to. Most chefs get bonuses if they hit their targets. So
Yep.
they've got a vested interest in actually making sure that they're hitting that target, and they end up actually quite enjoying it.
Yeah, fantastic. So there is obviously a bit of a fear factor of, hey, someone's watching me, it's a bit more intense, that sort of stuff. But the payoff is the fact that they get more insight and more understanding and more rewards in the case of a bonus of around that sort of stuff. Tasman, have you also found when companies have introduced digital time clocks and that sort of stuff, is there a little bit of a fear factor with staff? Hey, Big Brother's watching me, or that sort of thing? And how do you mitigate some of that?
No, well, as I said before, like it becomes like a fun, enjoyable thing. So, I mean, very much in the same vein as cooking the books it's those little things that, you know, managers do want to know how much their staff are costing them, but because it's too complex and very difficult to calculate, they've just never really been able to. So with Tanda, there's just there's a possibility to be able to see your roster costings, which is your budget, and then compare that in real time to what your actual data is, which is the automation of timesheets. So managers, at the end of the day, all they have to do is, you know, approve the shifts during the day, and they can get the real costing between what the roster was and what the actual data was. And that's so it's just these little things that, you know, you never thought were possible that, you know, the people in the business can get so much value out of and enjoy working with. So there might be an initial fear factor of, you know, how's this going to affect my business? Is this a cultural change? But the efficiencies always outweigh any perceived negatives to begin with.
Now, what about for people coming on board and getting started in the sense of support? You know, do they come to your website and learn about it? Are there some videos there to show them how easy it is to connect these? I mean, it is a one-click button, connect. What have you got from getting people on board and helping them get going?
Yeah, so we're big believers. There's no point building a system unless people know how to use it, and if something goes wrong, that they can chase someone up to make sure it gets fixed then and there. So we do phone support, website support. We have this this feature on our website where you can talk to us live if there's any issues or if you have any questions. But really, the benefit of this is as soon as because the device doesn't connect to Wi-Fi, you don't have to install anything, you don't have to download anything, you don't need someone in IT in the business. You basically just put it on the wall and staff clock in and clock out. And as soon as you've done that, you've been able to automate your staff attendance. So very simple.
So it's about making it easy as possible for customers to get up and running. Kiri, what about cooking the books? I mean, I know it's a massively huge system, and again, the connection is one click, log in, and away it goes.
Yep.
But what have you got in the way of support and training and getting people online as well?
Absolutely. So we do help people to start up their system. So if we've got your pantry list, we'll upload that into the system for you. So you've got something to work with from day one, rather than sitting there adding an ingredient one by one. We've got some how-to videos, full manuals. Obviously, we've got email and telephone support, and heaps of webinars. For the first 3 months, you've got a new best friend. Every time you get a new client, you're getting lots of little questions. They forget how to find something. Cloud-based and we store all your data there. There's benefits to that because that means in 12 months' time you can look back on your recipes. They're still live costed when you're doing your spring menu again. So it's $120 per month, and that will, if you're turning over $12,000 per month, you'll easily make that back. That 10% food cost savings.
Yeah, nice. Just even another wastage, really, wouldn't it be?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And Tasman, for Tanda, how does the pricing model work for you guys?
Yeah, so we're very simple. So there's nothing to get going. There's just $25 per location and $1 a week per employee. And we actively survey people who get going with Tanda, so we know that the cost benefits are there. So it's around 2 to 4% of labour costs, 60 minutes per employee, because what usually takes hours of manually typing in those timesheets and the different award rates into MYOB can now be done in 5 minutes. And it's a 2% clerical error rate that we also save. So, adding those extra zeros, Kieran, that you do sometimes. So, like, we can cut all that out as well. So, very simple.
Yeah, fantastic. Excellent. Alrighty, well, thank you very much for joining us. It's been great to actually just unpack a little bit and explore how these add-ons really can make a difference in your hospitality business. From looking after your chef and the team with the food side of things, through to the people actually on the floor, running the barista and such like for the coffee and things like that. So, no, fantastic. I really hope you've enjoyed that. Sorry, we've had a few technical issues. We didn't intend to actually do a quick little demo of them. There's some fantastic reports that are like one button click to get out of cooking the books, and the Tanda rostering is a great drag and drop little system. But given our technical issues this morning, we decided not to. The beautiful thing of this is that Cooking the Books are doing a 3-month trial, and Tanda are giving you a 1-month trial. So down below this video are the links to their websites. Get on there and go and have a look. The best thing you can do for your business is start to explore these. It's risk-free, so why wouldn't you? The Tanda guys will really get you up and running really fast. Kiri and the team will well look after you, make sure that you're in place there. And it's not going to cost you anything to try it and give it a shot in your business. So have a look at that. If you're not on the MYOB cloud products, make sure you're upgrading to those as well so you can take use of these services. Hey, thanks very much for joining us for this video. We'll go back now and just check what happened when it dropped out and such like. But we're going to be doing more of these in the coming weeks and months. So look forward to those. Get on and use these guys. Thanks, Tamsin and Kiri, for joining us. It's been really great having you here.